Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is the personal auto policy. And the the well, I concentrate mainly, and I'm 10 professional designations deep. I concentrate mainly on small, medium-sized business owners. I do get involved with, benefits or Medicare and Obamacare, whatever. But I kind of almost back sell on the personal line side. In other words, I generally don't go after the personal lines side. Uh, the positive of personal auto is it actually is broader in terms of its potential coverages versus the BAP, the business auto policy. Now, if we look at the personal auto policy, that's what it is. It's personal. So what is your coverage? Your coverage is going to apply to the named insured members of the household. It's going to apply to a variety of different things, but these things, as far as the coverages go, whether it's a member of the household or somebody using your car with permission, or you as somebody else's car, or a pedestrian, or whatever. So it's a cornucopia of things. In fact, when I was a very young adjuster, uh, one of the first claims I had was early on was I had a rape that led to a murder, and uh, there's exclusions for intentional acts. However, the person who got raped and murdered did not. It was not intentional on their part. It was the person who did it, and they were inside a vehicle when this happened. So at the end of the day, the personal injury protection coverage um, did apply, and the death benefit. Um, but also, later on, I had another claim where somebody committed suicide in their car. Now, from a personal injury, PIP, personal injury protection standpoint, that wasn't covered because that is an intentional act. So I've always had to remember suicide, I don't cover for my personal injury protection, but somebody gets raped or somebody gets murdered, yeah. And you could be doing things like, I don't know, unloading your car or working on your car. I mean, there's a variety of things can be covered through the personal auto, just not in, intentional acts from your standpoint. Um, and there's other, but that's kind of the main one. Now, when you're looking at the coverages, uh, the part of the reason why I don't delve much into personal auto is because everybody and their sister is selling this stuff, but it never ceases to amaze me how, you know, the simplest coverage, which is really at, first, second, third grade level for my brain, um, that the that people can really mess it up. Now, the starting point, you always make what's the highest priority in terms of a potential loss, because insurance, and again, you're only hearing my opinions. You're welcome to talk to other people or do your own research, whatever. Um, Liability is far and away the biggest concern people should have, because at the end of the day, a car is a dangerous instrument. It is a fully loaded gun, and whether you're the driving it or you're giving somebody permission to drive, at the end of the day, some really bad things can happen. Now, people may be focused on their deductibles and say, "Oh, if my car gets stolen, or I have a car accident or whatever, that's my fault," or eh, whatever. We'll talk about that separately. Um, the end of the day is you probably can recover from your car getting banged up or stolen or something. But at the end of the day, if you get sued, for something, then you can be held personally liable. And even if you don't have assets, it still can, they can get a judgment against you, and it obviously would impact your credit. But they can take away your assets, and there's lawyers on every street corner, billboards, internet, you name it, that are just begging for people to come to them so they can go ahead and put the screws on somebody else. Hey, I got you $2 million, I got you $5 million, and whatever. So, but be that as it may. And I worked in a plaintiff law firm for 2.5 years, so I've been on both sides of the fence. Okay, so I'm not saying one side's lily clean, the other one's evil, but let's just say that we are victim oriented. It appears to be that we're a victim oriented society, and people expect extremely, sometimes ridiculous form of compensation. Okay, but anyway, so let's address the liability. The thing I see is people buying minimum limits. Okay, it doesn't make any sense to me. But even when they buy, let's say it's a split limit and they're buying 100,000 per person, 300,000, uh, per person bodily injury, 300,000 regardless of the number of claims, this total amount bodily injury. And then for some strange reason, whoever's quoting them over there, or they're getting it from online or whatever, gives them $50,000 property damage. And I'm like, okay, well, first off, if you're doing 100, 300, I would rather have a combined single limit. But if you have a 100, 300, go ahead and do the 100, because the difference between 50 and 100,000 is like a couple bucks. I mean, come on. I mean, is there cars on the road that are worth over $50,000? Some of these Hondas and stuff are going for 40 plus. Okay. But a commercial vehicle, diminishment in value, loss of use, cargo, you know, um, and this tracks back in the umbrella. I had a guy that we worked together in INA many moons ago. He was an underwriter and I was a claims guy, but he had he became an agent, and so that's how we reconnected together. And he had a little girl, uh, small little car, and she gets up on the roadway, okay, and there's a tractor trailer coming, and the tractor trailer's coming, and if he hits her, I used to handle tractor trailer claims, and I can tell you they are by far the worst claims I have ever seen. If you want to see people and property just annihilated, I mean, be a truck claims adjuster, for bodily injury. So anyway, what happened is the trucker avoids her and goes into the median and ends up the other side. He hits another trucker head on. Uh, no injuries. Nobody got injured. Girl was at fault, obviously, because she pulled up in front of the trucker, and the trucker uh, saved her life basically by pulling. So she was found liable. No, not nobody even having a broken fingernail. Uh, Claim turned out to be $175,000. So at the end of the day, not only would the 100 not be enough, this is where the umbrella would come in. Or, like I said, I like combined single limit and $500,000 instead of 100, 300, 100. But I don't know how many times I see 100, 350, and I go, you know, uh, I realize the insureds are like, they got a ways to go from understanding insurance. But the funny part is the people they're calling up on the phone may not be that far off of them. And then, that gets interesting. Now, uh, for the purpose of discussion, states like I don't know, New York or I think there's 13 or 19 of them that are no fault states. And they will have requirements for PIP insurance because they're no fault. In our state, what technique I use, people can agree or disagree with it, is uh, our personal injury protection uh, and uninsured motorist, we're required by law to offer that. However, insureds can decline it. What I like to recommend from a technical standpoint, first off, I want to make sure if I got to do split limits, I'm doing 100, 300, 100. I'm definitely going to talk to them about an umbrella, okay, that they can put over their auto and their renter's policy or their home or whatever on the liability side. But I use the personally protection coverage is no fault coverage. It is for you, for members of your household, people in your vehicle, whatever. Uh, and So it'll pay, you know, 80% of your lost wages and it'll pay 100% of your medical. Okay. However, most of these limits are written 2,500. Some may even go up to 5,000. Well, I got news for you. Since I was hospitalized 7 times last year and only two so far this year, if you go to the hospital, like to the emergency room, and they breathe on you, that's $5,000. Okay. I haven't found a cheap emergency room situation, nor the things. I had one surgery. It's not funny, but I had a heart procedure. It was done, I was in the hospital and left the same day. Uh, they billed $121,000, which Medicare. I'm on Medicare, original Medicare, negotiate down to 21,000. But at the end of the day, I'm like, uh, if you're ended up in the hospital, you got some serious money coming in your pocket. Now, I'm going to use this example of somebody that we did. They came in and they were written by a very big, successful agent, does a lot of advertising on TV. And so the first thing right off the bat, he's got differing limits on his uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist bodily injury. We'll get to that. He has 100, 300. No, he had 50, 150. So right off the bat, I said, okay, let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'll sell you as much coverage as you want. As a matter of fact, the more, the better. Okay, I make more in commission, but it's not about the commission, the $20 difference or whatever, because you want higher limits. Uh, this is more like you really need to have this coverage. This comes from BNX claims, regional claims, rental law office, 10 professional designations, you name it, whatever. Okay, so I explained to him, I said, look, here's what we're going to do. We're getting rid of the 50, 150. And of course, right off the bat, I said, do you think somebody can get injured to the tune of 100,000 or more in bodily injury, pain and suffering, disfigurement, uh, medical bills, whatever? Okay, I already told you, hospital breathes on you, whatever. So then I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to increase you to 100, 300, and we're going to increase the property damage to 100. I said, we're going to do that. Okay. Now, that's going to cost some additional money. It's not going to be a lot, but there's going to be some. But let me show you how I'm going to take money from other places because at the end of the day, the priority is the highest amount and best amount of coverage that it would be for your benefit and your family's benefit. Now, this person, very smart guy, and the benefits side of the fence, very gifted individual. We talk a lot. We work together on the benefits side. So what I explained to him, I said, well, let me ask you a question. You're a hardworking guy. You're working all the time. You got a stay-at-home wife. You just had your fourth kid, right? So mom's staying at home. She's taking care of 4 kids, right? Yes. Okay. So what are you going to do for those 4 kids? What do you mean? Well, let me explain. You have $2,500 PIP, which this big agency that's on TV all the time that was writing the 50 under 50, which to me was ridiculous. It was item number one. Okay. But then you're also got this PIP insurance. And in Texas, you can reject the PIP insurance. But here's why I'm going to tell you to reject it. You could you're in the insurance business, you could be like Stephen Hawking. You could have a pen in your mouth and have be connected and still be able to talk to people and sell insurance. Okay. But I said, here's what's going to happen. Your wife, and your 4 kids get into a car accident. You've got $2,500. You've got health insurance, but you got a deductible, you got out of pockets and everything else. Okay. Now, this insurance, if they're involved in any way, shape, or form in any kind of vehicle accident, okay, whether they're in your car, her car, somebody else's car, a school bus, whatever, these kids are going to have $2,500 worth of coverage per person. So the best case scenario for your wife and the 4 kids getting injured is $12,500, right? 5 times 2,500. Okay. Now, how about if we did this? We reject the uninsured, we reject the PIP. And again, people don't agree with me and they feel differently. That's okay. This is what I'm recommending my clients, okay? And if they don't, be honest with you, if they don't want to follow what I'm telling them to do, whether it's in personal or commercial, it's probably best they end up with that other agent, okay? So they go in and we get them $10,000 each PIP or medical pay. Medical pay is a lot cheaper because it's medical only. These kids don't have a wage loss exposure, and the wife's staying at home taking care of the kids. So here's what happens. They've now gone for the same amount of premium, they've gone from $12,500 or $2,500 per person in the household, including him, to $10,000. So if they have a claim, regardless who's at fault, they could be at fault for it. They're sitting there with the potential to have $50,000 worth of things, which is $12,500. Now, I would say almost universally, these people out here quoting, you know, uh, they're all. I don't care if you call them up online or you go to the Good Hands, the neighbor, whatever, whoever, whatever. Who's talking to people about this? I'm looking at it from the standpoint like if I was in his shoes and I was going to have the claim. Now, like I said, the good neighbor, the good hands people, Flo, the salamander, the caveman, mayhem guy, the professor, people may disagree with me, and that's okay, but that's what I'm recommending. And so at the end of the day, I'm giving somebody more coverage for the same amount, going from 2,500 or 12,500 for the kid, the 4 kids and the mother to 50,000, same premium. Okay. So if this is you want to share this with somebody that you're talking with, or from your own standpoint, to educate you, meaning you as somebody that's working with us, this is my opinion. Okay. Take it for what it's worth. But I sleep very well at night with that scenario. And certainly if you're retired or something like that, why would you need PIP? You're not working anymore, dude. And if you do kind of work that you're not, and what's my $2,500 going to get eaten up in a heartbeat just by me showing up at the hospital? They take me over to the emergency room, they check me out and say, okay, you're good to go. There's $5,000. I'm telling you right now, I know because I been spending more time in the hospital, especially the last 9 years, but last year and into this year for sure. Okay, so that's a strategy. Can you use that maybe in a no-fault state? Probably not. They may still require to have PIP. But at the end of the day, you kind of look at those limits and try to figure out what works in your best. And by the way, um, those no-fault benefits, in case people don't realize, having handled claims like this, uh, they also a lot of times come with a death benefit. Now, somebody might charge a couple bucks to have a accidental death on their policy, I don't know, State Farm, all State Farmers, whoever, whatever. Uh, it's okay. You want to spend the extra $2, whatever. But a lot of times those coverages will have the no fault coverages will have a death benefit. And in particular, I've handled claims in Texas involving death claims, and people didn't know that they could use the PIP for a death benefit. And I said, yeah, and oh, by the way, if they're wearing a seatbelt, it doubles by statute. And they said, okay, well, if it doubles by statute, how do I know they had a seatbelt on? I said, they got all creamed in a car accident like it happened a few months ago at the when that truck driver down the road ran into and killed those 5 people in a pickup truck or whatever. Well, the reason why you know is that on the police report, if you get the police report, they'll usually check the box to say whether they had a seatbelt on or not. So it's an extra, doubling of benefits. It's a little. Hopefully, you never had to deal with a death claim. I've had my fair share in life insurance and claims over the years. Okay, so now we're going to turn to the uninsured motorist bodily injury property damage. Uh, this area, there are certain states, we'll talk about in commercial auto, where they require you to have uninsured motorist coverage. I am a huge fan of uninsured motorist bodily injury always being the same as the liability limits. What you're protecting for the public, you need to do for yourself and your family. It makes no sense for you to be out there and saying, "Oh, I'm going to protect this person for 100,000, but I don't need any uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist," because you can bet in Texas, some states are worse than others. I think Florida is one of the worst, if not the worst, for people that are driving around without insurance. But even though insurance is required, that does not mean these people have insurance. They don't pay the bill, they get their car registered or just drive around. And generally speaking, those people, I'm not here to run them down, are probably less financially responsible. They have maybe not the best driving history in the world. And so their premium's a lot higher, or they're, you know, socially irresponsible, or they don't have the money, or whatever. So uninsured motorist is probably dollar for dollar. Uh, I'm a big fan of the MedPay versus PIP, but dollar for dollar, maybe the best coverage out there. And where you want to have it, you don't necessarily have to have it on a business vehicle. I'll talk about that separately when I talk about business auto. But it really is something that you should be aware of the fact that you need to have as much coverage for bodily injury as possible. And in Texas, I would assume Florida or other states are similar. No expert in every state when it comes to personal auto or insurance in general, but they generally should allow you to have the same, limit as your liability. It's called a matter of public policy. So in this particular case, what we want to do is he had differing limits to begin with. He had like 50, 150 on his liability. I already took care of that. Said 100, 300, 100. Okay. A little bit of premium difference. But here's where I massage the money part. Okay. At the end of the day, we took his minimum limits uninsured motorist that he had. Some cases I see where they have it, they don't have it at all. Somebody running non-standard auto, maybe because it's a high cost, they don't buy it. But any person that's got preferred insurance, I don't know of a reason why they shouldn't have uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage for bodily injury. So what happened is I said to him, I said, let me ask you a question. Okay. If somebody runs into you, you're relying on them to have adequate limits of liability insurance for the protection of you. Maybe you don't care about yourself, but your wife and your children. People are seriously disabled, killed, whatever. Okay, so what do? If they don't have insurance, okay, because there are people out here running around, maybe one out of every five, and they have a tendency to have more get involved in more accidents. And if you have those people out there running around and people are out on the roadway and it only takes one, misadventure, 1 minute of misadventure, and your whole life changes, yours and whoever else is involved in a tragedy like that. And I've seen quite a few over the years, more than I ever want to think about. But what happens is the uninsured motorist sort of becomes like the coverage for that other person. And if they have minimum limits, because you can figure besides that 20% with none, you've probably got another 20 or 30% that have minimum limits. And so at the end of the day, and I've seen lawyers, I won't mention any names, I've seen lawyers, you would think that they're smart enough, but obviously they're not, or they're so clueless. I have seen lawyers who do not have proper limits of coverage for themselves. And they maybe don't even have it for, the general public. But to me, it's like, this costs you pennies on the dollar. Why would you not have it? Okay. So what happens is I said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to recommend that you increase the limit, your uninsured motorist, to match the 100, 300. Okay. So you've gone from minimum limits. Now, you got uninsured motorist property damage. Do you really need that? And the question is, you have collision coverage with a deductible. So you don't have to go under uninsured motorist property damage. Now, if the other party's at fault, they're going to pay for your car anyway, right? But at the end of the day, do you really need that? Because the worst case scenario is an uninsured motorist property damage coverage has a 250 deductible for now. This could change. And if you're sitting there, I don't know, with a $500 deductible, what are you risking? $250? What would you rather have? 100, 300 bodily injury to protect you and your children and whatever? And then I take that money and put it over there. Okay. Now, after I got finished doing that with him, he, wanted rental reimbursement. Okay, great. Towing labor, whatever, fine. But when I got done, I took off the uninsured motorist property. I said, you can keep it on there if you want. I don't care. I'm just saying that, you know, is there a scenario where you might be out a few bucks? I don't know. But once again, when's the uninsured motorist property damage come in? It's going to come in when the other person has no insurance. Because why does uninsured motorist pay? When the other party is at fault. So even if they have minimum limits, it's going to cover your car. And if you got your car insured with property damage anyway, who cares? You know, worst case, you're out 250 bucks. I kind of joked and said, hell, I'll give you the $250. It's how much I care about it. But I mean, it's a joke, obviously. But at the end of the day, who cares? No offense, but who cares about $250 versus 50 or $100,000 per person? I said, you got to 250. So you're not willing to risk $250 for, you know, 50,000 or $100,000? I don't know about you, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Okay. All right. So these are things, this is like as basic as get when you deal with personal auto. So what do you want to do? You want to make sure that you have adequate liability limits. And somebody quotes you 50, 150, or they quote you 100, 350. Take the 50,000 and put it up to 100. And you know what the difference when he didn't want, he said, I understand, I'm not going to do the uninsured motorist program. I said, okay, fine, just decline it. That's up to you. You want it or not want it, I don't care. The difference in me making all those changes was $12 every 6 months, or about $2 a month. Okay. So I'm kind of like, it's like I'm going down there to teach like ABC, because this particular agent is one of the biggest and most successful agents, bar none, bar none. And it's not just him. I've seen it with insurance companies, large insurance companies, captive insurance companies. And in some of them, uh, I'm reasonably certain in one particular carrier, I'll leave it unnamed, one of the majors, that they've been trained about some of the things I'm talking to you about, and they do absolutely nothing, because all they try to do is sell you whatever they can slap in front of you. And if you want to go that route, God bless you. It's not it's not up to me. Okay, so we kind of covered that. I also mentioned the umbrella. We've done umbrellas separately, and I'm going to turn to homeowners next. Okay.